Welcome to our channel. We're so excited to have you here with us today. If you're new, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you won't miss our next incredible story tomorrow. We love hearing from you, so leave a comment below and let us know where you're watching from. Your support means the world to us, and we can't wait to share more inspiring and heartwarming tales with you. Stay tuned for the next special story. We promise it'll leave you thinking long after it ends. Let's dive into today's video. One royal guard's unexpected act of kindness that changed everything. Lily had been looking forward to this trip for weeks. Her parents, Sarah and Michael, had planned every detail, knowing how much Lily loved horses. They were in London, standing at the gates of the iconic royal palace, the perfect place to combine her love for animals with the excitement of exploring new places. But nothing could have prepared them for the overwhelming experience Lily would face that day. The moment they arrived, the noise of the bustling crowds hit Lily like a tidal wave. People were everywhere, talking loudly, laughing, and snapping photos. The grandeur of the palace and the presence of the royal guards, standing stoically in their red uniforms, their faces unblinking, only seemed to make the situation worse. Lily, who thrived in quiet and predictable environments, began to feel a rising panic. The rigid posture of the guards, the noise, the sheer size of everything. She felt small and lost in the chaos. As they got closer to the guards, Lily's breathing quickened. She clutched Sarah's hand tightly, her eyes darting around nervously, searching for something familiar. Her heart raced and her thoughts spun. Sarah knelt down beside her, trying to calm her. "It's okay, sweetheart," Sarah said softly, her voice full of reassurance. "Look at the horses. Aren't they beautiful?" But Lily couldn't focus on the horses. The crowd was too loud, the atmosphere too intense. Her chest tightened, and tears welled up in her eyes. She was on the verge of a full meltdown, her body trembling, her mind scrambling for a way to escape the overwhelming sights and sounds. And then something extraordinary happened. Guard Chris Williams, standing perfectly still as part of his duty, noticed Lily's distress. He had seen countless tourists over the years, but something about Lily's panic struck him deeply. The rules of being a royal guard were clear: no breaking character, no matter what. But in that moment, something shifted in Chris. He couldn't just stand by and watch a little girl suffer. With a subtle nod to his fellow guard, he took a step forward, moving closer to Lily. He knelt down, his polished boots scraping gently against the cobblestones. "Hey there," he said softly, his voice warm and inviting. Guard Chris Williams couldn't ignore what was happening in front of him. For years, he had stood as a symbol of strength and discipline, a pillar of stoicism and tradition, never wavering from his post. But something about Lily's distress made him hesitate. He'd seen tourists stop, take pictures, and laugh, but this was different. Lily wasn't just a frightened child overwhelmed by the crowd. She was struggling to stay calm in a situation that was far too much for her to handle. The rigid formation of the guards, the noise of the crowd, the flashing cameras, it was all too much for her. Lily was teetering on the edge of a meltdown, and her parents were helpless, their eyes full of worry. Sarah tried to reassure her, but Lily's heart raced faster, her breath shallow and panicked. It was clear to Chris that Lily wasn't going to make it through this on her own. He had always followed the rules, never breaking character, no matter what, but in that moment, he couldn't stand by and watch her suffer. Without a second thought, Chris made his decision. He couldn't stay silent, couldn't stay still while a little girl was in distress. He glanced at the other guard beside him, a silent acknowledgement of what he was about to do. His boots scraped against the cobblestone as he moved toward Lily, his polished uniform gleaming under the sun. The crowd, for a brief moment, seemed to quiet down as they watched him step out of character. Chris knelt down slowly, his voice soft but clear as he addressed Lily. "Hey there," he said, his tone warm and inviting, a stark contrast to the stern, unapproachable nature he had spent years cultivating. For a moment, Lily froze, her wide eyes locking onto his, unsure of what to make of the unexpected gesture. Then, as if sensing the change in the air, his horse Orion, standing patiently nearby, lowered its head and nuzzled Lily's hand. The touch was gentle, soft, a moment of connection that cut through the tension like a knife. Slowly, Lily's panic began to subside. She looked at Chris, her eyes softening, and for the first time that day, a small, hesitant smile appeared on her face. The moment felt suspended in time. Chris had done what no one expected. He had broken tradition, but in doing so, he had made all the difference for Lily. As the crowd began to murmur in awe, Chris's focus remained on her, on the calming effect his simple act had brought. In that one moment, he realized that sometimes compassion had to take precedence over protocol. And Lily, now soothed by the gentle presence of the horse and the kindness of the guard, was beginning to feel safe again. As Chris knelt by Lily, the crowd's murmur grew louder, phones raised, capturing the unexpected moment. He was breaking the rules, something that no royal guard had ever done in the public eye. And yet, none of that mattered to him. The sight of Lily's smile, her earlier panic, now replaced with a sense of calm, was all that he cared about. For the first time in a long while, Chris felt something different, a deep sense of purpose that went beyond standing guard. He had made a difference. But not everyone saw it that way. From across the square, Guard Captain John Harper stood watching, his jaw set tightly, his eyes dark with disapproval. He had been observing the entire exchange, and though part of him could understand the impulse to help, another part of him, the part bound by years of tradition, couldn't ignore the breach of protocol. The Royal Guard had always been about discipline, about unwavering tradition. And Chris had shattered that with one simple act of kindness. The applause from the crowd was still echoing as Chris stood up and turned to return to his post, but Captain Harper was already walking toward him. His face was a mask of anger and disappointment. "Guard Chris Williams," he called, his voice stern, cutting through the murmurs of the crowd. "A word." Chris's stomach tightened. He knew what was coming. His heart was still racing from the moment with Lily, the joy of seeing her calm again. But now the weight of what he had done was starting to sink in. He had crossed a line. But had he done something wrong? Or had he simply done the right thing? "Sir," Chris said, standing tall, trying to mask the growing unease inside him. Captain Harper's gaze was piercing, but Chris stood his ground, knowing he had acted from the heart. "What were you thinking?" Captain Harper snapped, lowering his voice so the crowd couldn't hear. "We do not break character, ever. Do you understand that? No matter the circumstances. You've just shown the public that we're human, and that, my friend, undermines everything we stand for." Chris's chest tightened. He had known this moment was coming. He had prepared himself for it, but nothing could have made it easier. "Sir, with all due respect," Chris said, his voice steady despite the tension in the air. "I saw a child in distress. I couldn't just stand by. I had to do something. The rules are important, but so is compassion. Sometimes that has to come first." Captain Harper's face darkened, and the tension between them was palpable. "This isn't over, Williams. You've crossed a line. There will be consequences." As the captain walked away, Chris couldn't help but wonder if he had made the right choice. The whispers of the crowd and the buzzing of phones would follow him for days. But he stood firm in his decision, knowing deep down that he had done the right thing for Lily, even if it had cost him the respect of his superiors. As the incident unfolded, Chris couldn't shake the tension in his chest. His heart still raced from the moment with Lily, the connection he had felt when she smiled for the first time that day. But now, as Captain Harper's disapproving words echoed in his mind, a knot tightened in his stomach. He had acted from the heart, yet the consequences of breaking protocol were unclear. He had no idea what would come next, but he knew that in that moment, he had done what he felt was right. It wasn't long before the ripple effect began. Videos and photos of the moment Chris had broken character flooded social media. What had initially been a quiet act of kindness quickly exploded into a viral sensation. People from all over the world shared their thoughts, their admiration, and their awe. Many praised Chris, calling him a hero for showing compassion where the rigid structure of the royal guards had often been seen as unyielding. The hashtag Royal Compassion spread like wildfire, and Chris suddenly found himself the center of attention in a way he had never anticipated. But not everyone was happy with the public's reaction. Behind the scenes, there was a storm brewing. Captain Harper, whose stern face had never wavered from his commitment to tradition, was furious. He had always seen the Royal Guards as a symbol of unwavering strength and discipline. To him, Chris's actions had undermined that image. And yet, the world seemed to disagree. The applause, the support, the gratitude, it all came flooding in, and it was impossible to ignore. At the palace, the conversations grew louder. Some of the guards supported Chris's actions, seeing it as a necessary evolution of the royal guard's image, an institution that had long been seen as distant, even cold. Others, like Captain Harper, couldn't understand how a breach of protocol could be justified, no matter how well intentioned. Chris's phone was flooded with messages, most of them supportive, some questioning whether he had gone too far. One message in particular stood out. It was from a mother named Claire, whose son had autism. She thanked Chris for his compassion and told him that because of his actions, she was now considering visiting the palace with her son, something she had always been too afraid to do. The impact of his actions was greater than Chris could have imagined. His simple act of kindness had touched hearts around the world, inspiring countless families. But with the praise came the weight of the consequences. The world was watching, and it was clear that change was coming, whether the guards liked it or not. As the days passed, Chris continued to receive messages of support, but the uncertainty of his future lingered. Was he still in trouble? Would he be reprimanded for breaking tradition? Only time would tell. But no matter what happened, Chris knew one thing for sure. He had made a difference. And that, he believed, was worth everything. In the days that followed, the atmosphere at the palace shifted. The royal guard image, once untouchable, was now being scrutinized like never before. Chris felt the weight of it all, the praise, the support, but also the pressure of the consequences. The story of his act of kindness continued to spread, and with it came a surge of messages, stories, and even calls from families who had been moved by what he had done for Lily. Yet, in the back of his mind, the looming uncertainty remained. What would happen next? And then a surprising shift occurred. The palace leadership, after much deliberation, announced a new initiative, an initiative that would change the very foundation of the royal guards. It was called Guards of the Heart. The idea was simple but profound, to make the royal guards more accessible and compassionate toward visitors with special needs. The program was designed to foster kindness and understanding, while still upholding the traditions that had made the guards so iconic. But the surprise wasn't just in the initiative. It was that Chris was going to be at the forefront. The news hit like a bombshell. Chris had never imagined that his act of kindness would lead to something so significant, let alone make him the face of it. He had broken the rules, yes, but it was clear now that his actions had opened a door to something far bigger, something that, in the long run, could change the very culture of the Royal Guard. For the first time in a long while, Chris felt a sense of purpose and excitement. His actions hadn't just sparked a conversation. They had sparked a movement. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. Some guards still grumbled, skeptical about the new direction. They had joined the Royal Guard to uphold tradition, not to become emotional caretakers for tourists. The resistance was there, simmering under the surface. But Chris was undeterred. The conversations and the doubts were inevitable. Change was never easy, especially in a place like the Royal Guard. But Chris believed in this. He had seen firsthand the impact of kindness, the effect it had on Lily and on families like Claire's. He wasn't about to let tradition stand in the way of making the Royal Guard a place where everyone felt seen and valued. As the new initiative began to take shape, the palace grounds became a symbol of change. Guards who had once been cold statues of discipline started to engage with visitors, offering kind words, smiles, and small gestures of compassion. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. And for Chris, that was enough. In a few short weeks, Chris's simple act of kindness had transformed into something much larger. The Guards of the Heart program was more than just a new initiative. It was a testament to the power of compassion in a world that often values tradition over humanity. And Chris was ready to lead the way. We'd love to hear your thoughts on today's story. What did you think of Chris's decision to break protocol and show kindness to Lily? Do you believe that compassion should sometimes take precedence over tradition, especially in institutions that are so deeply rooted in rules and customs? Have you ever witnessed an act of kindness that made a lasting impact on you or someone you know? We'd be so grateful if you could share your story with us in the comments below. Also, let us know where you're watching from. It's always amazing to see how far our community stretches, and we love connecting with viewers from all over the world. Your support and feedback mean everything to us and help us bring you more powerful, inspiring stories. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you haven't already, so you won't miss the next heartwarming tale we have in store for you. Trust us, you'll want to be here for our next story tomorrow. And if you're enjoying the journey, please like the video, share it with friends, and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. We can't wait to read your comments and continue this conversation with you.